Minister, the People Before Profit have very proactively supported the vaccination campaign and encouraged people to get vaccinated as an absolutely critical measure to give us a layer of protection against COVID-19, which the vaccination programme has undoubtedly done, and put us in a position where hopefully, fingers crossed, we can edge our way out of the really grim period that we've been through, and the terrible hardships, the mental stress and anguish that people have had to endure for the last year and a half. Our view on this and our record on this is very clear. We think vaccination was critical to respond to the COVID-19 crisis, and we think for people to be vaccinated to the levels that they have, where more than 90% of the adult population have been vaccinated, is a tremendous show of solidarity and wisdom by the people of this country in the face of a really horrendous society-wide and global-wide threat. But I think it is a mistake to imagine that that success has been achieved through coercion or through mandatory measures. Overwhelmingly, the response, and indeed sometimes, quite often, the pressure on government and politicians to take some of the measures, and in some cases very difficult public health measures, in the face of the pandemic, actually came from people calling for them. And they did so on a voluntary basis because they listened, they reasoned out the information they were being given, and they concluded that compliance with public health measures and vaccination were the right thing to do to address the threat that COVID represented, particularly to people who are vulnerable, the elderly, and so on. In my view, coercion, legal requirements were not, in any sense, the major significant factor in assuring the levels of compliance and support for the public health campaign and for the vaccination campaign that we have achieved. While I don't share some of these sort of, I think, slightly inflammatory explanations of your legislation here to extend the emergency powers and some of the language that's been used around it, I don't share that, and I don't think it's helpful, frankly. I do think this is not the right thing to do. And we opposed the last legislation in this area because I think it potentially is counterproductive. I have great faith, and I think that faith should have been reinforced in what we've witnessed from the people of this country over the last while, in the wisdom and common sense of ordinary people in the face of this threat. And actually, trying to use sort of coercive or discriminatory measures to achieve compliance with public health, or measures that are necessary to protect public health, actually, I think, gives succour to a small minority of forces out there who are trying to undermine the public health effort. It actually gives them ammunition that you don't need to give them. And I also think it unnecessarily discriminates against people who have genuine worries. Not worries in many cases I share, and I think we need education and information to try and address those concerns, but I don't think we should be seen in any way to sort of persecute those people or discriminate against them. I'm not saying that's the intention, but the problem is that that sometimes ends up being the effect of these measures. And I think that is counterproductive, and that's the reason we will oppose this extension of that. I mean, there are, I met a guy on the street, just to give you an example, the other day, who said, I want to be vaccinated, but I'm absolutely terrified of needles. And he's hoping that there will be a pill or there will be a spray that he'll be able to get vaccinated. And indeed, I heard Luke O'Neill saying he's hoping there will be a spray, right? And I don't love needles, to be honest, right? But there's some people who are genuinely scared of them. And for that reason, they may not have got vaccinated. There are some people who've had bad reactions to vaccinations in the past, and therefore they are genuinely afraid. They're not conspiracy theorists. They're not trying to whip up opposition to the vaccination campaign, but they're genuinely concerned. There's some people who do have concerns about the speed at which the vaccine was developed. I don't share them. I think the evidence is there, but I understand that some people may have not yet been convinced. And I don't think the best approach is to, if you like, discriminate against those people when we have achieved the high levels of vaccination and compliance with public health measures that we have achieved on a voluntary basis through the enthusiasm and indeed often endurance of hardship of ordinary people in compliance. So I think it is a mistake. I think it's unnecessary. Of course, we have always, in the opposition, facilitated the government where it was necessary to respond to particular stages in the development of the pandemic. We will facilitate any reasonable request by the government, but I don't think this is necessary, and I think it is potentially somewhat counterproductive, for that reason we will oppose it and ask the Minister to reconsider whether this is necessary.
Now,